Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So this is kind of a part 2 of my top books of 2019. My first one, I went through everything minus romance. So if you were interested in my top 10 2019 releases of every other genre but romance, go ahead and check that out. I'll leave a link down below. And this is going to be my top romance that I read in 2019. And I'm formatting this in kind of a weird way because, as many of you guys know, I went down the romance genre rabbit hole in 2019. 2019 was the year that I really discovered the whole entire genre, and I went hard with it. That being said, I don't have as many new releases to talk about because I feel like I was trying to read a lot of the hot new releases that everybody was talking about, but I was also trying to work my way through backlists of authors, whether those were authors that I discovered through the hot new books, or if they were just authors that I've heard a lot of people talking about that I was interested in. So I was kind of doing both things, which means this list is not going to be all 2019 releases. I have 6 2019 releases that I fell head over heels in love with, and that maybe sent me down the rabbit hole of a specific author or what have you. And then I also am going to have 6 authors that I fell in love with in 2019 in the adult romance genre. So that's how I'm formatting this video. It's gonna be 6 books and then a lot of books. Does that make sense? Let's just get started. So starting with the newer releases, the 2019 books that everybody wants to know my thoughts on, the first one that I want to talk about is Well Met by Jen DeLuca. These are in no particular order, by the way. I'm just kind of going through at random the titles that jumped out at me. This book I adored. I feel like a lot of people didn't love this as much as me. It just touched really close to my heart because I am such a Ren Fair nerd. I have been going to my local Ren Fair for decades at this point. I generally get season passes. I'm that person who dresses up. I spend the whole day there. I eat all of the food. I do all of the things. I just adore it. It's such a really fun, nerdy little escape thing that I go to during the fall, and it's just such a thing that's close to my heart. So reading a romance, a contemporary romance that's set at a Ren Fair was just, it was the perfect thing for me. So this book not only has that as its main backdrop setting, it also is a hate to love trope type of story, and I just adored watching this unfold. Everybody knew the direction the story was going, but it was just so fun to watch their relationship bloom in the setting of a Ren Fair. So I adored this. Also adored Jen DeLuca as an author. She is just such a freaking sweetheart. She is very active in the community, and I just adore her to pieces. So I cannot wait for the next book in this series, because yes, it's gonna be a series. I'm so excited. The next book that I want to talk about is the Bromance Book Club by Lyssa Kay Adams. This book, I knew I was gonna love it. I didn't know how much I was gonna love it though. So the whole concept of this book is we are following a guy who is kind of on the cusp of getting a divorce from his wife because he basically found out that she has not been pleased in the bedroom for quite some time, and they are not in this happy relationship that he thought they were in. So his jock buddies take him under their wing, and they have this secret romance book club that they all read romance books in to basically get relationship advice. They use romance books to figure out how to fix issues in their own relationships, and they read romance books to really understand what toxic masculinity is and how to be better men in relationships and give women what they fantasize about and what they want, which is such a brilliant concept. And that sounds like it could be handled really poorly, or it could be handled really well. And I think this was handled so tastefully because it really discussed a lot of things. It really brought up the concept that we are starting to discuss a lot in society right now about how just the degradation of women's interests. Things that women or girls are really into are just kind of made fun of as being a girly thing, whereas men don't have that stigma surrounding things that they might be into. It's not really shameful to like sports if you're a dude, but it's shameful to read romance books as a woman. So it really kind of opens up the curtain into that discussion, and I just loved how it was done because it was told from the guys' perspectives as they were starting to realize these things. It was brilliantly done. It also had a lot of good representation in it. Our main character has a stutter, and that was kind of handled really well. It also kind of discussed being in the spotlight as a pro athlete and also being married to a pro athlete, the like stigma that follows all of the like athletes' wives and girlfriends. It was just so well done. Like, I thought it was going to be a really fun, fluffy story, and it ended up being so much more than that, and I can't wait to see what she does. I'm currently reading the arc of the sequel to this, and it's just as good. It tackles just as many important issues, and it's so well done. I just love it so much. Read this book. It's great. The next book is one that I was not expecting to really make this list, because I loved it when I read it. I haven't thought about it since, but going through and making this list and thinking about this book, I can't stop thinking about it again, and I want to reread it. And that is Marriage for One by Ella Mays. This book like swept the romance community in the springtime when it came out, and I was a little skeptical about it because it just didn't sound great to me, to be honest. So this follows a fake marriage trope situation. It's basically a marriage between this like douchey dude, like a big powerful businessman, to this girl as like a business transaction. Obviously end up having to like fake this entire relationship, move in together, and of course they start to fall for each other. But it is the slowest of slow burns. Like, we see it coming from our protagonist, the girl's side, but Jack, who is like the main dude, is just such a jerk for a lot of the book. But he was very well developed. Like, he wasn't just like a douche for no reason. Like, there was a lot of stuff that as it got revealed, it made sense. And this book just kind of stuck with me. Like, the story just, I don't know, it's just resonating with me. And I really want to reread it now. So I feel like I should definitely include this in this list. And this next book is going to come as no surprise to anybody who's been watching any of the top 2019 lists lately. And that is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. I love this book just as much as everybody else does, in case for whatever reason you don't know what it's about. It's basically following like a fictionalized political line where we are following the son of the first woman president in the US who falls in love with like a prince from England. And it was, one, a really adorable romance. Two, really well discussed politics, which is something that I tend to stray away from in books just because the political climate in our country is tense right now, so I don't need that in my books. But this was just such like a hopeful look at what we want the country to be, how hopeful it could be. So I just adored this. The romance was great. The discussion was great. There was just so many great things about this. It was a great like family dynamic on both sides. I just loved all of the characters in the book. So much like everybody else, I adore this book. I'm going to read everything Casey McQuiston writes at this point because she can do no wrong in my mind right now. And while I'm saying that I don't like political stories, the next book is basically my segue into the authored part of this video, but the 2019 release that I just adored is The Kingmaker by Kennedy Ryan. This is politically heavy, but this is also Kennedy Ryan, and in case you guys haven't watched my channel recently, I love Kennedy Ryan. She's one of my favorite authors, so I'm gonna read everything that she writes at this point. But this is very much like a steamy adult romance between two alpha characters, and I just love that. I think that's why I like Kennedy Ryan books, because both of her characters are very independent and very strong characters, so it kind of takes away the element of like the neediness in a relationship because they don't really need the other person, but like they can't stay away from them. And I think that's why her books work so well for me, is like our female protagonist is like super independent, doesn't need a man, but is real into a man. And this other guy also doesn't really need a person in his life to depend on him. And it's just, I love her dynamics in her books. This one heavily deals with Native American culture and the pipeline drama that's happening in our country recently. And our main character, female lead, is super ambitious, is willing to go all the way up to the top as far as campaigning goes and politics and everything to basically do right by her people. And we also are following the son of an oil tycoon. So obviously there's gonna be some obstacles in the relationship, but it's handled so well. And the discussions that she opens up in this book are just amazing. I just love Kennedy Ryan so much. So that is obviously going to lead me into my author portion. These are going to be all of the authors that I went down the rabbit hole with in 2019 in the romance world that I just can't get enough of, that I like maybe read one of their books and then I read all of their backlist titles. Kennedy Ryan being one of them. I have like all of her books here at this point, and much like that one, all of her books are very modern, they're very contemporary, and they're very important. Like, they are way more than just a fluffy romance. While there's usually a really sexy, steamy romance that moves the plot forward, there's so much more conversation being opened up in her stories about really intense modern issues. The Grip series is probably my favorite romance I've ever read, mainly because I kind of advertise Grip as being an adult romance version of On the Come Up or The Hate You Give, where it really opens up the discussion of racism in our country and how present it still is and how it can affect relationships, whether that's romantic, friendship, or family. It was so well done. And then her Hoop series, you think it's just gonna be like a sports romance, but it's like, whoo, it's way more than that. And those are triggering stories. That handles a lot of like abuse and a lot of racial things. Her books are just hard-hitting stories that I just really appreciate how well they're written. So Kennedy Ryan, for sure, top author of 2019 for me. All of her books. All of them. The next author that I went down the rabbit hole with was Mariana Zapata, and I didn't really realize that I liked slow burn romances until I read hers. And I feel like hers are the only ones that I really liked. I liked Marriage for One, but Mariana Zapata is the queen of the slow burn romance. Her books are chunky. Like, hold on, I have Colty right here. Her books are large for indie published romance. And a majority of the books, like I'm talking like we don't get to the sex until like the last chapter of these books, but it is so worth it. So if you guys are into slow burn books, Mariana Zapata, From Lukov with Love is probably my favorite one by her just because it's a little more lighthearted and not as controversial. Some of her books are like Colty is a little controversial because there's a huge age gap in this one. But I just adore the dynamics that she develops between her characters as the relationship develops, because they generally don't start as a romantic partnership, and it slowly works up to that, and it's so great. So if you're into that tension, like the sexual tension building type of romance, oh my god, read her books. They're so great. The next author that I went down the rabbit hole with is Elle Kennedy. I have, let's see, I'll pull out the first two books of her, like, Off-Campus and Briar U series. I fell head over heels for these books. They are just college sports romances. They're hockey romances. And I'm not a huge sports person. Like, that's not a thing that I look for in romance books at all. But for some reason, her writing is just so addicting that, like, you can't stop reading her books. And as we were getting further, as we were getting into the, like, spin-off series, we started dealing a lot more with harder hitting things. Like, we start to deal with like workplace harassment. We also start to deal with a lot of characters who are just like not the normal female leads in romances. Like, they have a lot of like development that they go through in these books, whether it's from like past abuse or, like I said, workplace harassment, or just kind of like identity issues. So I adore Elle Kennedy. I am still working my way through her backlist stuff, which is going to lead me into the next author that I want to talk about, and that is Sarina Bowen. I mean, who's shocked? I've talked about the True North series like endlessly this year. It's my now go-to comfort read books, like when I'm either feeling slumpy, when I don't know what to read, when I'm not in the mood to read, but I kind of want to read something to get it going. I've reread the series 3 times. I didn't even count the second times in my Goodreads challenge. I literally just like binge read through them 3 times this year. The entire, like, it's a 6-book series and I read all of them 3 times. Why? I don't know. This setting is just so perfect. This is the introduction that I needed to get into small town romance and realize that it is my chosen trope. I just adore like small town settings where each book follows a different like dude or a different romance or something, but it's all around the same like farm family or small town family. And I think that's my favorite thing in books is found families, and small town romances generally are that, because we're taking usually a girl out of her element and putting her into like a rugged setting, and the town just kind of like adopts her in as one of their own, and I just adore that. Like, that is not getting old to me at all. It's the stereotypical Hallmark Channel movie trope. I still love it. I love it. So, like I said, I'm working through the Elle Kennedy backlist, which also includes Sarina Bowen, because they do indeed have a book together, actually a series. So I'm steadily working through the backlist of both Elle Kennedy and Sarina Bowen, and they co-write books together, and it's just gonna be a jolly old time. So those are some of my favorite authors. The next one is gonna also kind of loop right into that same small town series vibe that I had from the True North series, and that is the Jameson Valley series by Dabney Perry, who is another author that I am falling down the rabbit hole for. I started with this series. I literally started these because I just adore these covers. Like, her covers are so freaking pretty. And I'm so glad that I finally picked them up. I know that's not really how you should be picking books, but I mean, let's be real, that's how you pick books. And I'm just loving her writing. This, in my mind, it's not as good as the True North series, but it gives me all of the vibes. This one is very angsty, and there's a lot more drama in this series, but I still just love it so much. So she is definitely an author that I am still working on. I want to read her newest series that just came out, because I think that's an MC romance, and then I'm working through all of her back stuff, because I think her back stuff is, like, heavy and, like, emotional, and I need to prepare myself for it. But my body is ready. The last author also kind of falls into the same vein as in how I discovered them, and that is Corrine Michaels. I started with her Say You'll Stay, Say You'll Still Want Me, that trilogy, and that was kind of, I found that because that is a small town romance. From chapter 1 of Say You'll Stay, I want to say is the first one, I was hooked because her books are emotionally draining, but they are so good. So that trilogy was kind of like a standalone trilogy in a small town setting, and I've been working my way, I started from book 1 of hers and I'm working my way back up to that, and every single one is hard-hitting. It's a really good romance, like it's a healthy romance, and so far a lot of her stuff is also military romance, which is emotional. There's a lot of tears that have been shed from all of her books from me, but I'm just loving them so much. So she is definitely an author that I just like fell down the rabbit hole with, and I don't want to get out. It's great down here. It's emotionally traumatizing, but it's fine. It's also sexy, so it's okay. Those are all of my top romance experiences that I had in 2019. Those were my top releases. These are my top authors that I just discovered in 2019. So if you have any more recommendations, let me know down in the comments, because I'm just kind of working on like the big ones and then ones that sound really appealing to me as far as authors go. So if you have recommendations for me, please let me know. Kennedy or Ryan kind of takes the cake for me, so if there's anything similar to that, let me know. So that is going to be it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you guys in my next one.